The fluorescent lights of SaveMart buzzed overhead as I stacked cans of tomato sauce on the shelf, my movements mechanical after 6 hours of the same repetitive motion. My lower back ached, my feet screamed inside the cheap sneakers I'd bought at a thrift store 3 months ago, and the bruise on my cheekbone throbbed with every heartbeat. I'd done my best to hide it. Foundation 3 shades too light because it was all I could afford. My dark hair swept forward, curtaining the left side of my face. Oversized glasses I didn't need, purchased for $2 at a dollar store. From a distance, in the harsh grocery store lighting, it almost worked. Almost. Emma, register 4 needs backup. My manager's voice crackled through the store's intercom system, pulling me from my thoughts. I abandoned my cart of canned goods and made my way to the front, keeping my head down, my hair forward. It was a Tuesday afternoon in Chicago, the slow period between lunch rush and evening shoppers. The store smelled like floor cleaner and the rotisserie chickens spinning endlessly in their heated case. If you're enjoying this story so far, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe. Drop a comment telling me where in the world you're watching from. I love hearing from you. Register 4 had a line of 3 people, nothing I couldn't handle. I slipped behind the counter, my practiced smile in place. The one that didn't reach my eyes, the one that said, "I'm fine," when everything was falling apart. The first customer was an elderly woman buying cat food and crackers. The second was a college student with energy drinks and instant ramen. The third made my breath catch. He stood at least 6'3", broad-shouldered in a charcoal suit that probably cost more than I made in 6 months. Dark hair swept back from a face that could have been carved from marble. Sharp jawline, straight nose, eyes so dark they looked black until the fluorescent light caught them and revealed deep brown. He carried himself with the kind of confidence that came from never having to question whether you belonged somewhere. Behind him stood 2 more men, also in suits, also scanning the store with eyes that missed nothing. Security. Or worse. The man set a bottle of Italian sparkling water on the conveyor belt. Just one item. People who shopped like this, expensive clothes, single unnecessary purchase, entourage of dangerous-looking men, didn't belong in SaveMart. They belonged in places with marble counters and staff who knew their names. Will that be all? I kept my voice steady, my eyes on the register screen, my hair angled forward. For now. His voice was deep, controlled, with a slight rasp that suggested either too many late nights or too many cigarettes. Chicago accent underneath, the kind that said he'd grown up here, probably on the South Side before money changed his zip code. I scanned the water. $8 for something that came from a tap for free. $8.47 with tax. He handed me a $50 bill, and when I reached for it, my hair shifted. Just slightly. Just enough. His hand didn't release the bill. Instead, his eyes, those impossibly dark eyes, moved from the money to my face. I watched his expression change, subtle but definite. The professional detachment replaced by something sharper. Focused. Keep the change. He released the 50, but he didn't move, didn't take his water, didn't step aside for the growing line behind him. "Sir, I can't accept." "Then put it in the charity box." He leaned forward, close enough that I could smell expensive cologne mixed with something else. Danger, maybe, though that might have been my imagination. Look at me. I'm working. I shoved the change into the charity collection box with shaking hands, grabbed his receipt. "Here, have a nice day." I tried to move to the next customer, but his hand, large, scarred across the knuckles like he'd hit something hard repeatedly, pressed flat on the counter between us. "Look, at me." The authority in his voice made me obey before I could think better of it. I lifted my head and my hair fell back, exposing what I'd been hiding. The bruise had darkened overnight, purple-black spreading from my cheekbone to my temple. The split in my lip I'd covered with lipstick. The slight swelling around my left eye that no amount of ice had been able to reduce. His jaw tightened. Something dangerous flashed through his expression, there and gone so fast I might have imagined it. Then he reached out, slowly, giving me time to pull away, and used one finger to tilt my chin up, turning my face toward the light. Who? One word. Quiet. But carrying the weight of something that made the two men behind him straighten, their hands moving subtly toward wherever they kept their weapons. It's nothing. I jerked back from his touch, my heart hammering. I fell. It looks worse than it is. You fell. He didn't make it a question. Didn't have to. The disbelief was evident in every line of his face. Stairs. I'm clumsy. The lie came automatically, worn smooth from repetition. I'd told my manager the same thing yesterday. Told my neighbor last week when she'd heard Marcus shouting through our apartment walls. Told myself every time I looked in the mirror and pretended this was normal. Stairs don't leave fingerprints on throats. I touched my neck automatically, felt the concealer I'd layered there. He'd noticed. In less than 30 seconds of interaction, he'd cataloged every injury I'd tried to hide. I don't know what you think you saw. I see a woman who's been hurt. Recently. Repeatedly. Based on the fading yellow bruise under your right eye that's about a week old. He straightened, and somehow that made him more intimidating, not less. I see someone who's afraid. Someone who's lying because the truth is worse than the lie. Sir, you're holding up the line. My manager appeared at my elbow, his tone apologetic but firm. If you're done with your purchase. The man pulled out a business card, set it on the counter with deliberate precision. Heavy cardstock, expensive. Just a name, Dante Romano, and a phone number. Call me when you're ready to tell the truth. His eyes held mine. Or when you need help. Whichever comes first. Then he was gone, his security team flowing around him as they exited the store. I watched through the windows as they climbed into a black SUV with tinted windows and disappeared into Chicago traffic. Who was that? My manager asked, staring after them. I have no idea. But my hands wouldn't stop shaking as I picked up the business card. The weight of it felt wrong. Too heavy, like it carried obligations I couldn't afford to accept. I shoved it in my pocket and tried to forget about Dante Romano and his two knowing eyes. The apartment in Pilsen was small, a studio where the bathroom door didn't close properly and the radiator clanked all night like a dying animal. But it was mine. Or it had been mine, for the 3 months between leaving my last bad situation and Marcus convincing me I needed someone to take care of me. Now it was our apartment, though Marcus's name wasn't on the lease. He'd moved in slowly, the way water finds cracks in concrete. A toothbrush 1 week. Clothes the next. By the time I'd realized he wasn't leaving, it was too late. I climbed the 3 flights of stairs, no elevator, another charm of affordable Chicago housing, and stood outside the door for a full minute, listening. Silence. Maybe he wasn't home. Maybe I'd have an hour to breathe, to exist without monitoring every word and movement. The lock clicked open. Inside, the apartment was dark except for the blue glow of the television. Marcus sat on the couch. My couch. The one I'd saved for months to buy used, drinking beer and watching some action movie with the volume too loud. You're late. He didn't look at me, eyes fixed on the screen where things exploded in expensive CGI. My shift ended at 4. It's 4:15. I set my purse on the counter, trying to move quietly, trying not to disturb whatever precarious peace existed in this moment. Traffic's bad. Takes 10 minutes to get from SaveMart to here. Should have been home at 4:10. Now he looked at me, and I saw he'd been drinking longer than just this evening. His eyes were red-rimmed, mean. "Where were you?" "Nowhere. I came straight home." "You stopped somewhere. I can always tell when you're lying." He stood, and I instinctively took a step back. "Who were you with?" "No one. Marcus. I came straight home from work." My voice was steady, but my heart raced. I'd learned to recognize the signs, the set of his shoulders, the way his hands flexed at his sides. The storm was coming. "Then why do you smell like cologne?" I didn't. Couldn't. I'd scanned groceries for 6 hours. The only thing I smelled like was SaveMart's industrial floor cleaner and desperation. "I don't—" He crossed the space between us in 2 strides, grabbed my arm hard enough to leave new bruises on top of old ones. "Don't lie to me, Emma. I take care of you. I provide for you. The least you can do is be honest." "I am being honest." Tears burned my eyes, but I blinked them back. Crying made it worse. "You met someone today. I can see it on your face. Some guy at the store, probably. You think I don't know how men look at you?" His grip tightened, and pain shot up my arm. "You think I'm stupid?" "There was no one, I promise. I just worked my shift and came home." The lie felt necessary, inevitable. Telling him about Dante Romano, about a man in an expensive suit who'd noticed my bruises and offered help, would only confirm his paranoid fantasies. "You're a liar." He shoved me backward, and I caught myself on the kitchen counter. "You're a lying, ungrateful—" My phone rang, the sound cutting through his building rage. We both stared at my purse where the muffled ringtone continued. "Don't answer it," Marcus said. But my manager's name was flashing on the screen, visible through the purse's open zipper. "It's SaveMart, probably about tomorrow's schedule. Let it go to voicemail. If I don't answer, they'll think something's wrong." I reached for the phone slowly, carefully, like approaching a dangerous animal. He grabbed it first, answered with a voice that was suddenly all charm. "Hello?" "Oh hey, yeah. She just walked in. Hold on." He handed me the phone, but his eyes promised consequences for whatever came next. "Hello? Emma, it's David. Listen, I need you to come in early tomorrow. Maria called in sick, and we need someone to cover the morning shift." My brain processed options at lightning speed. Coming in early meant leaving the apartment before Marcus woke up. Meant hours away from his surveillance and accusations. Meant a brief window of peace. "Sure, I can do that. What time?" 6 a.m. I know it's short notice." "It's fine, I'll be there." I hung up and faced Marcus, trying to read his mood. "They need me for the morning shift. I have to be there at 6. "Of course they do. Because you're so valuable." The sarcasm dripped from his words. "Or because you told them to call. Set this up so you'd have an excuse to leave. Marcus, get out of my sight." He turned back to the television, dismissing me. "And don't think about going anywhere tomorrow except work. I'll be checking." I retreated to the bathroom, the only room with a door that locked, even if it didn't close properly, and sat on the closed toilet lid, shaking. The business card in my pocket felt like it was burning a hole through the fabric. Dante Romano. "One phone call," he'd said. "When you need help." But I'd needed help before, and help had never come. The police had taken Marcus's side when I'd called last month, charmed by his explanation about my clumsiness and tendency toward dramatics. My mother had told me I'd made my bed when I'd moved in with another wrong man. My few friends had slowly stopped calling after Marcus started monitoring my phone. Help was a myth, a fantasy sold to women who didn't understand that some situations didn't have exits. I washed my face, reapplied concealer to bruises that seemed to multiply daily, and made myself a silent promise. 6 more months. Save every penny from the morning shifts. Find a new apartment. Leave while he's at work. Disappear before he realizes I'm gone. It was the same promise I'd made last month, and the month before that. But maybe this time would be different. Maybe this time, I'd actually be brave enough to leave. The morning shift at SaveMart started in darkness. I dressed silently, hyper-aware of Marcus sleeping in the bed we shared, the bed that no longer felt safe, that had become another cage. 5:30 a.m. and the apartment was freezing, the radiator having given up sometime around 3. I grabbed my SaveMart vest, my purse, the keys I kept in my pocket instead of hanging by the door where Marcus could hide them. Every movement was calculated to create minimal noise, minimal disturbance, minimal risk. The door clicked shut behind me, and I exhaled. Made it. One more morning of escape. The bus ride to work took 40 minutes, the pre-dawn city still mostly asleep. I watched Chicago slide past the windows, liquor stores behind security gates, 24-hour diners serving truckers and insomniacs, the occasional homeless person huddled in doorways against the November cold. SaveMart's parking lot was empty except for my manager's car and the delivery trucks making their morning runs. David met me at the entrance, looking tired but grateful. "You're a lifesaver. Maria's got the flu, and Tuesday mornings are busier than you'd think." He handed me a scanner and clipboard. "Just need you on receiving duty. Check in the deliveries, verify counts, sign off. Easy stuff." Receiving duty meant the loading dock, meant working alone in the back where customers didn't go, meant peace. I can do that. The first truck arrived at 6:30. Produce from California. Boxes of lettuce and tomatoes that would be on the shelves by 8. I checked items against the manifest, signed the driver's paperwork, watched the forklift operator move pallets into storage. The second truck arrived at 7. This one had SaveMart's logo on the side, general inventory from the distribution center. More routine checking, more signatures, more blessed solitude. The third truck arrived at 7:45, and it wasn't a delivery truck. The black SUV that pulled up to the loading dock was the same one I'd seen yesterday. Tinted windows, expensive rims, the kind of vehicle that made a statement about power and money, and the kind of people who didn't wait in line at grocery stores. The driver's door opened. Dante Romano stepped out, still in a suit, different from yesterday. This one navy with a subtle pinstripe, looking like he'd either been up all night or hadn't needed sleep. "This is a loading dock," I said, my voice echoing off concrete. "For deliveries. You can't park here." "I'm delivering something." He walked toward me with that same controlled confidence, and I noticed his security team stayed in the vehicle. Privacy then. This conversation was meant to be private. "You bought Italian water yesterday. I think you're good." "I'm not here to shop." He stopped 3 feet away, close enough to talk without shouting over the forklift noise, far enough to not be threatening. "I'm here to make sure you made it through the night." The observation, the casual way he acknowledged what my bruises meant, should have been humiliating. Instead, it felt like someone seeing me for the first time in months. Really seeing me, not the version of Emma I presented to the world. "I'm fine." "You're at work at 6 a.m. with fresh bruises on your wrist that weren't there yesterday." His eyes tracked to where my SaveMart vest sleeve had ridden up, exposing the marks Marcus's grip had left. "That's not fine." I tugged the sleeve down. "How did you even know I'd be here?" "I called. Asked for your schedule. Told them I was your brother." He said it without shame, like tracking down domestic violence victims at their workplace was perfectly normal behavior. "That's..." I struggled for the right word. "Stalking? Caring? Invasive? Not okay. Neither is what he's doing to you." Dante reached into his jacket. I flinched, couldn't help it, and pulled out a folder. "I had my people look into your situation. Emma Hayes, 26, moved to Chicago 2 years ago from Indianapolis. Worked 3 jobs before SaveMart. No family nearby. No police reports filed despite multiple 911 hang-ups from your address over the past 6 months. My face burned with anger and embarrassment. You investigated me? You had no right. I had every right. You walked into my line of sight with injuries that made me want to find whoever put them there and make sure they never touched you again. He set the folder on the loading dock's metal railing. The man you live with, Marcus Webb, has a history. Assault charges in Indiana. Restraining order from an ex-girlfriend. He's not registered in your apartment's lease, which means he can be removed without legal complications. You don't understand. It's not that simple. It's exactly that simple. His voice hardened. You leave. He doesn't follow. If he tries, he stops existing as a problem. The implication in those last words made my stomach turn. What does that mean? It means I have resources. Connections. People who specialize in making problems disappear. He held my gaze. He's a problem. I can make him disappear. You're talking about... I couldn't even say it. Murder. He was offering to commit murder on behalf of a woman he'd met yesterday. I'm talking about protecting someone who needs protection. Dante moved closer, and this time I didn't step back. I'm talking about ending a situation before it ends with you in a hospital or worse. I'm talking about making sure that when you look in the mirror, you see yourself without having to hide behind hair and makeup and lies. Why? The question burst out of me. Why do you care? You don't know me. I'm nobody to you. Something shifted in his expression. Pain, maybe. Or memory. My sister was somebody. Sophia. She was 24. Beautiful. Full of life. She dated a man who seemed charming at first. Then controlling. Then violent. She tried to leave 3 times. The 4th time, she didn't make it. The words landed like physical blows. I'm sorry. Don't be sorry. Be smart. He picked up the folder, held it out to me. This has information about a safe apartment. Already rented, already furnished, in a building with security. The lease is in a name that isn't yours. One of my properties. He'll never find you. There's also a new phone. Untraceable. And contact information for a lawyer who specializes in restraining orders. I stared at the folder like it might explode. I can't accept this. Why not? Because I don't know what you want in return. Because men like you don't help women like me without expecting something. Men like me. He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. You think you know what kind of man I am? You show up in an SUV with security. You have resources that can make people disappear. You investigate strangers and offer them apartments. I crossed my arms. You're either mob or you're dangerous, and probably both. I'm both, he agreed easily. But I'm also someone who watched his sister die because nobody helped her when she needed it. I'm someone who has power and resources and the ability to change outcomes. And right now, I'm someone offering you a way out. A way out. The words echoed in my head, tantalizing and terrifying. I thought about Marcus waiting at the apartment, about the accusation that would come when I got home. Who had I been talking to on the loading dock? Why was I late? What was I hiding? I thought about his hands around my throat last month, squeezing until I saw stars. About the promises he made after. I'm sorry. It'll never happen again. I love you. I just get so angry when I think about losing you. I thought about doing this for another 6 months, another year, until one of us snapped, and it ended the way Sophia's story had ended. If I take this, I said slowly, what do you get? Peace of mind. Dante set the folder on the railing between us. And maybe, eventually, a chance to take you to dinner at a restaurant that doesn't have fluorescent lighting. Despite everything, the fear, the exhaustion, the bruises hidden under my SaveMart vest, I almost laughed. That's your angle? You're going to rescue me and then ask me on a date? I'm going to help you rescue yourself. The date is optional. He stepped back, giving me space. Think about it, but don't think too long. Statistics say situations like yours escalate. I'd rather not have you become another statistic. He returned to his SUV, and I watched him drive away, the folder sitting on the railing like a test I wasn't sure I was ready to take. Inside were keys, an address, a phone, a different future. All I had to do was be brave enough to reach for it. I made it through the rest of my shift on autopilot, the folder hidden at the bottom of my locker in the employee break room. Every time I passed the back hallway, I thought about it. Those keys, that address, the possibility of a life where I didn't calculate every word before speaking. By 3 p.m., when my shift ended, I'd convinced myself to leave it there. To forget Dante Romano and his dangerous offer. To go home to Marcus and try harder to be the girlfriend who didn't provoke him. I'd convinced myself of this right up until I walked through the apartment door and found Marcus going through my purse. "What's this?" He held up the business card. Dante's business card, the one I'd forgotten was still in my jacket pocket from yesterday. My mouth went dry. Someone left it at the register. I was going to throw it away. Dante Romano. Marcus turned the card over, examining it like it held secrets. "You know him?" "No, he was just a customer." The lie came automatically, but my voice shook. "Just a customer who gives you his personal number?" Marcus's face darkened. "You think I'm stupid, Emma? You think I don't see what this is?" "It's nothing. I don't even know who he is." "Liar." He threw the card at me and I flinched. I looked him up. Dante Romano runs half the South Side, owns restaurants and clubs and God knows what else. Connected to every Italian family in Chicago. My heart hammered. I didn't know. You didn't know you were making eyes at a mob boss? You didn't know you were giving him your number? I didn't give him anything. He came through my line, bought water, and left. That's it. I backed toward the door, recognizing the fury building in Marcus's eyes. That's it? He moved toward me, and I saw his hands were already in fists. You expect me to believe that a man like Dante Romano shops at SaveMart for water? That he just happened to pick your register? Marcus, please. You must think I'm an idiot. His voice dropped to something dangerous, something quiet. You must think I won't figure out what you're planning. Running to some rich criminal because you think he'll take care of you better than I do. That's not... The first hit caught me across the mouth, splitting my already healing lip. The second drove the air from my lungs. I tried to protect my face, but Marcus grabbed my hair, yanked my head back, his face inches from mine. You're mine, Emma. You don't get to leave. You don't get to go running to someone else. Spittle flew with his words. I'll kill you before I let you leave me. Do you understand? I understood. I understood that this had crossed a line it couldn't uncross. I understood that the escalation everyone had warned about, the statistics Dante had mentioned, was happening right now. I understood that if I stayed, I would die. Marcus released me, and I crumpled to the floor, tasting blood. He stood over me, breathing hard, and I saw something like satisfaction in his expression. Like he'd proven a point. Like he'd won. Clean yourself up, he said finally. We're going out to dinner. You're going to smile and pretend everything's perfect. And if you even think about that business card again, I'll make sure you regret it. He went to take a shower, and I sat on the kitchen floor, shaking. Blood dripped from my lip onto the cheap linoleum. My ribs screamed where he'd hit them, and in my mind, I heard Dante's voice. Statistics say situations like yours escalate. I'd become a statistic if I stayed here. I'd become another Sophia. Another woman who died because she waited too long to leave. The folder was still in my locker at SaveMart. The keys to a different future. I just had to be brave enough to take them. I pulled out my phone. Marcus hadn't taken it yet, hadn't thought to, and typed a text to the number on Dante's business card. I'm ready. The response came within seconds. Address? I sent him my location, then deleted the entire conversation. Cleared my call log. Erased any evidence that Dante Romano existed in my phone. Then I waited. 20 minutes later, my phone rang. David from SaveMart. Emma, hey, weird question, but your brother just called. Said there's a family emergency and he's coming to pick you up. You okay? My brother. Dante had used the same story twice. Yeah. Can you tell him I'll meet him outside in 10 minutes? Sure thing. Hope everything's all right. Marcus emerged from the bathroom, hair wet, already dressed for the dinner he'd planned. Who was that? My manager. They need me to come in early tomorrow again. The lie flowed easily now, lubricated by fear and necessity. Tomorrow? Didn't you just do an early shift? Maria's still sick. They're short-staffed. I stood, trying not to wince at the pain in my ribs. I need to run by the store real quick to pick up the schedule. His eyes narrowed. Now? I'll be fast. 10 minutes. I promise. I grabbed my purse, my keys, moving toward the door before he could stop me. Emma. His voice stopped me cold. Don't make me regret trusting you. You won't. I promise. Another lie. The biggest one yet. I walked out of that apartment knowing I would never walk back in. The November air bit through my SaveMart vest, but I barely felt it. I walked the 3 blocks to the store, my heart hammering, expecting Marcus to appear behind me at any moment. Expecting him to have figured it out, to drag me back, to make good on his threats. But the street stayed empty except for evening commuters and a homeless man asking for change. At SaveMart, I went straight to my locker, grabbed the folder. The keys felt real in my hand, solid and heavy. Proof that escape was possible. The black SUV was waiting in the parking lot. Dante stood beside it, and when he saw me, saw my fresh injuries, the blood on my mouth I hadn't had time to clean, his expression went cold in a way that should have terrified me, but somehow didn't. Get in. Not a request. I climbed into the back seat. Dante followed, and the SUV was moving before the door fully closed. His security team drove without speaking, professionals who'd clearly done this before. He hit you again. Dante's voice was controlled, but something lethal lurked beneath it. He found your business card. He looked you up. He knows who you are. The words tumbled out. He said he'd kill me before he'd let me leave. He won't get the chance. Dante pulled out his phone, sent a rapid series of texts. Marco, Tony, I need a retrieval team at Emma's apartment. Everything that belongs to her. Clothes, documents, anything personal. You have 20 minutes before he realizes she's not coming back. You're sending people to rob my apartment? I'm sending people to get your things so you don't have to go back there. He met my eyes. Unless you want to go back? No. The word came out fierce, certain. No, I never want to go back there. Good. He handed me tissues from a compartment in the door. Clean your face. We're going somewhere safe. The somewhere safe turned out to be a brownstone in Lincoln Park, one of Chicago's most expensive neighborhoods. 3 stories of restored Victorian architecture, security cameras discreetly positioned at every corner, a doorman who nodded to Dante like this was perfectly normal. Inside, the apartment was beautiful in a way that made my SaveMart studio look like a prison cell. Hardwood floors, exposed brick, furniture that looked both expensive and comfortable. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked a tree-lined street, and I could see the city lights beginning to twinkle as evening settled. Second floor is yours, Dante said, leading me up a curved staircase. Bedroom, bathroom, small office. The kitchen and living room downstairs are shared, but I'm rarely here. You're staying here? The question came out sharper than intended. I own the building. My apartment is on the 3rd floor. He stopped outside a door, pulled out a key. You'll have complete privacy, locks on your door, security that answers to me. He can't get to you here. What about my job? Keep it if you want it. Though I could offer you something better, I need a manager for one of my restaurants. Better pay, better hours, actual benefits. Why are you doing this? I asked, for what felt like the 100th time. Really, the truth. Dante was quiet for a long moment, his dark eyes searching my face. Because Sophia called me the night she died. She was scared, said her boyfriend was out of control, asked me to come get her. I was in a meeting, an important meeting with people who don't appreciate being interrupted. I told her I'd call her back in an hour. He stopped, and I saw the pain etched in every line of his face. I never got to call her back. He killed her before I could. His voice roughened. So when I see a woman with bruises trying to hide behind her hair, I don't take meetings. I don't wait an hour. I do whatever it takes to make sure she doesn't become another Sophia. The raw honesty in his words made my throat tight. I'm not your sister. No. But maybe you can be the one I save. He handed me the key and turned to leave, giving me space. But I called after him. Dante? He paused on the stairs, looking back. Thank you. For seeing me. For caring when nobody else did. Something soft crossed his expression, vulnerability breaking through the dangerous exterior. Get some rest, Emma. Tomorrow we figure out the next steps. Tonight, you're safe. That's all that matters. After he left, I stood in the apartment, my apartment, at least temporarily, and processed what had just happened. I'd left Marcus. I'd accepted help from a man I barely knew. I'd put my life in the hands of someone who operated outside the law and apparently had the resources to move me across the city in under an hour. I should have been terrified, should have been questioning every decision that led me here. Instead, I felt something I hadn't felt in months. Relief. The bedroom was 3 times the size of my old studio, with a queen bed covered in soft gray linens and blackout curtains that would actually block the streetlights. The bathroom had a clawfoot tub, heated floors, towels so thick and soft they felt like clouds. I ran a bath hot enough to hurt, sank into water that turned pink from the blood and dirt and fear I'd carried all day. My ribs were purple with bruises. My lips still bled sluggishly, but I was here. I was safe. I was away from Marcus. A knock on the apartment door made me freeze, panic flooding back. But then I heard voices. Multiple people speaking Italian. Dante's retrieval team. I dried off, wrapped myself in a robe I found hanging on the bathroom door, and emerged to find 3 men unloading boxes in the living room. My clothes, my books, the few possessions I'd managed to keep through years of running and starting over. Everything that was yours, one of them said, his accent thick. Mr. Romano said to be thorough. What about Marcus? Did he? He wasn't home. We were in and out in 15 minutes. He'll never know it was us. After they left, I went through the boxes slowly, pulling out pieces of my life. The jacket my mother had given me before we stopped speaking. The journal I'd kept since I was 16. A photograph of me at 20, before the bad relationships and bruises, smiling like I believed good things were possible. That girl felt like a stranger. I was unpacking books when another knock came. This time, it was Dante, carrying bags that smelled amazing. You haven't eaten, he said, moving to the kitchen like he belonged there. And you need to eat. I'm not hungry. You will be. He unpacked containers, pasta carbonara, fresh bread, salad with ingredients that looked like they cost more than my weekly grocery budget. Sit. Eat. We'll talk. I sat, and despite my protests, my stomach growled at the smell. I couldn't remember the last real meal I'd had. SaveMart's break room vending machines didn't count. The pasta was incredible. Rich and creamy, perfectly cooked, the kind of food that made you close your eyes and forget everything else existed. You cook? I asked around a mouthful. My grandmother insisted every Romano learn to cook. Said we'd never starve and never be lonely if we could feed people. A slight smile. She was right. You said you own restaurants? 3. Italian, obviously. 1 in River North, 2 in the South Side. He poured wine from a bottle I hadn't noticed. Red, expensive looking. The one in River North needs a manager. The current one is retiring next month. It's yours if you want it. I've never managed anything except register 4 at SaveMart. You're smart, organized, and you've survived things that would break most people. That's the skill set I need. He leaned back, studying me. Besides, you can't go back to SaveMart. Marcus knows you work there. The logic was sound, but the offer felt too big. What do you expect in return? For you to do the job well, to rebuild your life, to stop looking over your shoulder. He paused. And maybe, eventually, to have dinner with me when you're not eating because you need to, but because you want to. You want to date me. I couldn't keep the disbelief from my voice. I'm a mess. I'm running from an abusive ex. I have nothing to offer you. You're a survivor. You're brave. And you're sitting here eating pasta instead of going back to a man who would have eventually killed you. That's everything. If you're hooked on this story, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss an upload. Your support means everything and helps me bring you more emotional stories like this one. I set down my fork, suddenly not hungry. What if he finds me? He won't. You don't know that. He's persistent, obsessive. He'll look for me. Let him look. Dante's voice went cold, dangerous. If he comes near you, if he so much as searches for this address, he'll discover what happens to people who threaten what's mine. I'm not yours. Not yet. He stood, started clearing plates. But you're under my protection, which amounts to the same thing in my world. Anyone who wants to hurt you has to go through me first. And Emma? He turned, met my eyes. Nobody goes through me. The certainty in his words should have scared me, should have sent up red flags about trading one controlling man for another. Instead, I felt safer than I had in years. That night, I lay in the most comfortable bed I'd ever slept in and waited for the panic attack to come. For the guilt, the second guessing, the voice that said I'd made a terrible mistake. It didn't come. Instead, I slept through the night for the first time in 6 months. No nightmares. No waking to Marcus's hands around my throat. No calculating whether getting up to use the bathroom would wake him and trigger another episode. Just sleep. Deep, dreamless, healing. When I woke, sunlight streamed through gaps in the blackout curtains. My phone, my old phone, the one Marcus might be able to track, sat on the nightstand. 13 missed calls, 27 texts, all from Marcus. I read them in order, watching his progression from confusion to anger to threats to begging. Where are you? Emma, this isn't funny. Come home. I'm sorry about last night. I didn't mean it. You know I love you. If you don't answer your phone in the next hour, I'm calling the police. You're making a big mistake. Whoever you're with, whatever you think they promised you, I can give you more. I'll find you. I'll always find you. You can't hide from me. I will kill whoever took you from me. And then, I'll kill you. The progression was textbook. I'd read enough articles on domestic violence to recognize the pattern: confusion, bargaining, rage, threats. Marcus was following the script perfectly. A knock on my door made me jump. It's Dante, I have coffee. I wrapped the robe around myself and opened the door. He stood there holding 2 mugs, dressed in slacks and a white shirt with the sleeves rolled up. Casual for him, probably, but still more polished than anyone had a right to be at 7 a.m. "You slept," he observed, studying my face. "How can you tell?" "Your eyes aren't hollow anymore, and you smiled when you saw the coffee." I had. I'd actually smiled. "He's been calling, texting." "I know. We've been monitoring his phone." At my look, Dante shrugged. "One of my people is a tech specialist. Your ex's phone is essentially an open book to us. We're tracking his location, his calls, his searches. If he gets within a mile of you, we'll know." "That's illegal." "Extremely." He handed me a mug. "So is beating your girlfriend, but he didn't let legality stop him." The coffee was perfect. Strong. Just the right amount of cream. "What happens now?" "Now you shower, get dressed, and come downstairs. I'm making breakfast." He started down the stairs, then paused. "Oh, and Emma? There's a phone on your nightstand. New number, encrypted, untraceable. Your old phone stays off. Use the new one for everything." I found the phone where he'd said, sleek, expensive, probably worth more than I made in a month. When I opened it, there were already contacts programmed in. Dante, his security team, the restaurant he wanted me to manage, a therapist named Dr. Sarah Chen. "You programmed a therapist into my phone?" I called down the stairs. "You've been through trauma. Professional help isn't optional." His voice floated up from the kitchen. "She specializes in domestic violence survivors. First session is scheduled for tomorrow if you want it." He'd thought of everything. New apartment, new job, new phone, therapy. He'd essentially rebuilt my entire life in under 24 hours. I should have been angry at the presumption. Should have demanded he consult me before making decisions about my future. Instead, I took the world's longest shower, dressed in my own clothes that smelled like fabric softener instead of fear, and went downstairs to whatever came next. Dante Romano had saved me. The question was, what that salvation would cost. The restaurant was called Carmela's, named after Dante's grandmother. It occupied a corner building in River North with floor-to-ceiling windows that flooded the space with natural light during the day and offered views of the Chicago skyline at night. The interior was elegant but warm, exposed brick walls, dark wood tables, soft lighting from Edison bulbs hanging at varying heights. "It seats 90, Dante explained, walking me through the empty dining room on a Thursday morning before they opened for lunch. "We do about 300 covers a day between lunch and dinner service. Staff of 25, including kitchen. The previous manager, Antonio, ran it for 15 years. He's staying on for 2 weeks to train you." I ran my hand along the bar, feeling the smooth wood. "This is too much. I stock shelves and scan groceries. I don't know anything about running a restaurant." "You know about working hard, about showing up, about surviving impossible situations." He leaned against the bar, arms crossed. "Everything else can be taught." Antonio appeared from the kitchen, a man in his 60s with gray hair and kind eyes that crinkled when he smiled. "You must be Emma. Dante tells me you're going to be keeping my restaurant running after I abandon it for Florida." "I'm going to try." "That's all any of us do." He gestured toward the back office. "Come, I'll show you the books, the systems, the 1,000 little things that keep a place like this from falling apart." The next 2 weeks blurred together in a crash course on restaurant management. Antonio taught me everything. How to read food cost reports, manage staff schedules, handle difficult customers, work with suppliers, how to taste a dish and know if the seasoning was right, how to read a dining room and know which tables needed attention, how to make people feel welcome the moment they walked through the door. I worked 12-hour days and came home to the Lincoln Park apartment exhausted but satisfied. Real exhaustion, the kind that came from building something instead of just surviving. Dante usually appeared around 9 with dinner, sometimes food from Carmela's, sometimes dishes he'd cooked himself, always delicious and far better than anything I could have managed. We'd eat together in the shared kitchen, talking about our days. He told me about the complicated politics of running businesses that operated partially in shadows. I told him about learning the difference between Chianti and Brunello, about the line cook who was dating the hostess and thought nobody knew, about Antonio's stories of the old neighborhood. It felt domestic, normal, like we were two regular people sharing a space instead of a mob boss and the woman he'd rescued from her abusive boyfriend. Except we both knew that wasn't true. Marcus's calls had stopped after 3 days, but his social media activity hadn't. Dante's tech specialist, a woman named Gia who looked like a college student but apparently could hack anything, showed me the posts. Marcus had created a Facebook campaign. Missing person, Emma Hayes. My photo, one he'd taken of me 6 months ago, before the bruises became constant, plastered across various Chicago groups. A sob story about his girlfriend who'd disappeared, who he was desperately trying to find, who might be in danger. The comments ranged from sympathetic, "I hope you find her," to suspicious, "If she left, maybe she had a reason." But hundreds of people had shared it. Hundreds of potential eyes looking for me. "He's trying to force you out of hiding," Gia explained, her fingers flying across her laptop keyboard. "Classic abuser tactic. Make you seem like the unreasonable one. Make himself the worried boyfriend. Get enough people looking that you'll eventually be spotted." "Can you make it go away?" "I can make it less visible." She typed something, and Marcus's post suddenly showed 0 shares instead of 300. "But I can't stop him from creating new ones. He's obsessed, Emma. This isn't going to end just because you disappeared." Dante had been standing by the window watching the street below. Now he turned, his expression cold. "Then we ended a different way." "What does that mean?" I asked, though part of me already knew. "It means I have a conversation with Marcus. Make it clear that his search ends now." "No." The word came out sharper than intended. "You can't just... I don't want you doing something that will get you in trouble because of me." "I won't get in trouble." "You'll hurt him." "Yes." No hesitation, no apology. "He hurt you repeatedly. He threatened to kill you. He's now trying to hunt you down using social media. This isn't a person who responds to polite requests, Emma. This is a person who needs to understand there are consequences for his actions." "And you're going to be those consequences?" "Someone has to be." He moved toward me, and I saw the lethal intent in his eyes, the part of him that ran an organization built on power and fear. "I told you I protect what's mine. That protection isn't passive. I'm not asking you to become a monster because of me. I've been a monster for a long time." His voice was soft, almost gentle, but the words were brutal in their honesty. "The only difference is now I'm being a monster for a reason that matters." Before I could respond, my new phone rang. Unknown number, but Chicago area code. I answered hesitantly. "Emma Hayes?" A woman's voice, professional and cautious. "Who's asking?" "My name is Detective Sarah Martinez with the Chicago PD. I'm calling about a missing person report filed by Marcus Webb. He says you've been gone for 2 weeks, that he's worried about your safety. I'd like to ask you a few questions if you have time." My stomach dropped. I looked at Dante, who'd gone very still. "I'm not missing," I said carefully. "I left that relationship because it was unsafe. I'm fine." "Mr. Webb mentioned you might say that. He's claiming you're being held against your will by a man named Dante Romano. Are you with Mr. Romano right now?" Ice flooded my veins. Marcus had brought the police into this, had specifically named Dante. This wasn't just about finding me anymore. This was about destroying the man who'd helped me escape. "I'm not being held against my will. I left voluntarily. I'm safe, and I don't want contact with Marcus Webb." "I understand, but given Mr. Romano's reputation, we need to verify your safety in person. Can you come to the station? Or I can meet you somewhere public if you'd prefer. I looked at Dante again. He nodded slightly. Permission, or maybe acknowledgement that refusing would only make this worse. I can come to the station. When? How about this afternoon? 3 o'clock? I'll text you the address. After I hung up, Dante's expression was dark. He's smart. Bringing in the police. Naming me specifically. He knows I can't make someone disappear when the cops are actively investigating. What do I tell them? The truth. You left an abusive relationship. You're staying with a friend. You're safe. And you want to be left alone. He moved to the window again, hands in his pockets. Just don't mention the apartment address or where you're working. Keep the details vague. Will they believe me? They'll have to. You're an adult. You have the right to leave and not be found. His jaw tightened. But Emma, after this, we accelerate the timeline. I was going to wait another month before filing for a restraining order on your behalf. We're doing it tomorrow. The police station smelled like burnt coffee and desperation. Detective Martinez turned out to be a woman in her 40s with tired eyes and a no-nonsense attitude. She led me to an interview room, gray walls, metal table, the kind of space designed to make people uncomfortable. Thank you for coming in. She set a file folder on the table between us. I know this is probably stressful. I want you to know that my priority is your safety, not Mr. Webb's feelings. Thank you. So let's start simple. Did you leave your relationship with Marcus Webb voluntarily? Yes. Were you in fear for your safety when you left? I hesitated, then pushed up my sleeves. The bruises had faded to yellow-green, but they were still visible. Fingerprints on my wrists. Larger marks on my upper arms where he'd grabbed me. I left because he was hurting me. Because it was escalating. Because I was afraid if I stayed, I'd end up dead. Detective Martinez's expression softened. Did you ever file a police report about the abuse? No. I called 911 a few times but hung up before anyone answered. I was scared of what he'd do if I got him in trouble. She made notes, her pen scratching across paper. And Dante Romano? How did you meet him? He was a customer where I worked. He noticed the bruises, asked if I needed help. When Marcus attacked me again, I accepted that help. What kind of help? A safe place to stay, a job, distance from Marcus. Are you in a relationship with Mr. Romano? The question caught me off guard. No. He's been a friend, someone who saw I needed help and had the resources to provide it. You're aware of his reputation? His connections? I know he's not a regular businessman, if that's what you're asking, but he's never hurt me, never threatened me, never made me feel unsafe. I leaned forward. Detective, I need you to understand something. Marcus Webb is dangerous. He's escalating. The missing person report, the social media campaign, that's not concern. That's him trying to force me to come back so he can hurt me again. I believe you. She closed the folder. And honestly, this interview was more about documenting your statement than anything else. You're an adult who left voluntarily. Mr. Webb can file all the reports he wants, but I can't force you to go back. What I can do is help you get a restraining order if you want one. I do. Good. I'll connect you with victim services. They'll walk you through the process. She stood, then paused. One more thing. Dante Romano, be careful. Men in his position don't help people out of pure altruism. Whatever debt you think you owe him, whatever arrangement you've made, just be careful. Her warning echoed in my head during the cab ride back to Lincoln Park. Be careful. As if I wasn't already hyper-aware of the precariousness of my situation. As if I didn't lie awake some nights, wondering what Dante would eventually expect in return for his generosity. But then, I'd remember the way he looked at me, not with ownership or expectation, but with something that looked like hope. like maybe saving me was also saving some part of himself he'd thought was lost. That night, Dante cooked. Real cooking, not takeout from Carmela's. He took over the kitchen with the confidence of someone who knew his way around knives and fire, and I sat at the counter drinking wine and watching him work. Osobuco, he explained, braising veal shanks in wine and tomatoes. My grandmother's recipe. She made it every Sunday. Said it was peasant food made fancy. Everything you cook is fancy. That's because I learned from someone who believed food should be made with love or not at all. He stirred the pot, tasted, added more salt. She raised me after my parents died. Car accident when I was 8. She was the only family I had left until Sophia. I'm sorry. Don't be. She taught me everything important. How to cook, how to be loyal, how to survive in a world that doesn't care if you live or die. He poured more wine into the pot, then into both our glasses. She would have liked you, would have said you had survivor's eyes. What are survivor's eyes? The kind that have seen hell but still look for heaven. He met my gaze. The kind you have. The moment stretched between us, heavy with things unsaid. Then his phone rang, shattering it. He answered in Italian, his expression darkening as he listened. Short, clipped responses. Then he hung up. What's wrong? Marcus is at Carmela's. He showed up 10 minutes ago, asking for you. Said he knew you worked there. My blood ran cold. How did he find out? Probably followed you, or bribed someone for information. It doesn't matter how. Dante's voice had gone cold, dangerous. What matters is, he's escalating, showing up at your workplace, making a scene. Is everyone okay? Antonio had security escort him out. But Emma? He moved around the counter, his hands framing my face. This ends tonight. I'm not letting him terrorize you anymore. What are you going to do? Have a conversation, make things clear. You're going to hurt him. Yes. Still that brutal honesty. I'm going to hurt him enough that he understands you're untouchable, that continuing this obsession will cost him more than he's willing to pay. I don't want you doing something you'll regret because of me. The only thing I'd regret is standing by while he continues to hunt you. He pressed his forehead to mine. Let me protect you, Emma. Let me be what you need. What if what I need is for nobody to get hurt? Then you need something impossible. He pulled back, and I saw the resolve in his eyes. He made this inevitable the moment he decided his ego was more important than your safety. I'm just delivering the consequences he earned. He left 20 minutes later, taking 2 of his security team with him. I sat in the apartment alone, the osso buco simmering on the stove, and tried not to imagine what kind of conversation Dante was about to have. The not knowing was worse than anything. I paced, drank more wine, checked my phone obsessively even though I knew Dante wouldn't call until it was over. At 11 p.m., my door opened. Dante stood there, his shirt slightly disheveled, blood on his right knuckles. Not his blood, I realized. Someone else's. It's done, he said quietly. Is he alive, conscious, in an emergency room getting his broken ribs checked? Dante moved to the sink, washed the blood from his hands. He won't be filing any more missing person reports, won't be showing up at Carmela's, won't be posting your picture on social media. He understands now that you're protected. You broke his ribs. I broke 3 ribs, his nose, and possibly his jaw. I also had my lawyer file a restraining order on your behalf while I was explaining things to Marcus, and I may have suggested that if he violated that restraining order, his injuries tonight would seem gentle by comparison. He said it so calmly, like violence was just another business transaction. Maybe in his world it was. You did this for me. I did this for you. He dried his hands, then turned to face me. And I'd do it again. I'd do worse if necessary. That's what protection means in my world, Emma. Not just hiding you away, but making sure the people who hurt you understand there are consequences. I should have been horrified, should have seen him as just another violent man, no different from Marcus. But I didn't. Because the violence wasn't about control or ego or possession. It was about removing a threat, about making sure I could sleep without nightmares, could go to work without looking over my shoulder, could build a life without constantly calculating escape routes. Thank you, I said quietly. You're thanking me for assault? I'm thanking you for caring enough to risk yourself for me. I moved closer, close enough to see the exhaustion in his eyes. Nobody's ever done that before. Nobody's ever thought I was worth protecting. You're worth more than protection. His hand rose, cupping my face with surprising gentleness despite the blood I knew he'd spilled tonight. You're worth everything, Emma. I just need you to start believing that. Then he kissed me. Not the gentle, testing kiss of someone unsure of their welcome, but something deeper, more certain. A claiming that somehow didn't feel like possession. His hands in my hair, my fingers gripping his shirt, both of us leaning into something that had been building for weeks. When we broke apart, both breathing hard, he rested his forehead against mine. I'm falling in love with you, he said. Have been since the moment you looked at me with those survivor's eyes and refused to accept charity. I need you to know that before this goes any further. Before you decide if this is something you want. I'm terrified of you, I admitted, of what you're capable of what it means to be with someone who operates the way you do. You should be terrified. I'm not safe, Emma. I'm not the good guy. But you're good to me. I touched his face, felt the tension in his jaw. You see me. You protect me. You make me feel like I matter. You do matter. More than you know. Then yes. This is something I want. I pulled him closer. I want to try. Even if it's complicated and dangerous and probably the worst decision I could make. Probably. But he smiled, and it transformed his face, made him look younger, less burdened. But we'll be complicated and dangerous together. We stood in the kitchen, the osso buco forgotten on the stove, and held each other while the city lights sparkled through the windows. Outside, Marcus was in an emergency room learning that obsession had consequences. Inside, I was learning that sometimes salvation came in unexpected forms. Sometimes it wore expensive suits and had blood on its knuckles. Sometimes it cooked Sunday dinners and knew exactly how much violence was necessary to protect what it loved. And sometimes, just sometimes, that was exactly what you needed. 3 months later, I stood in Carmela's during the dinner rush, watching 90 tables filled with happy customers eating food that made them close their eyes and forget their problems. Antonio's retirement party had been last week, a celebration that turned into Dante's entire organization showing up to honor the old man who'd helped build something beautiful. Now the restaurant was mine to run. My staff, my systems, my success or failure. Dante sat at the bar, as he did most nights when he wasn't handling business elsewhere, watching me work, occasionally catching my eye and smiling in a way that made my heart skip. My phone buzzed with a text from Dr. Chen, the therapist Dante had insisted I see. Proud of how far you've come. See you Tuesday. I'd been seeing her twice a week, processing the trauma, learning to trust my own judgment again. Learning that leaving Marcus had been the right choice, that accepting Dante's help hadn't made me weak, that love didn't have to come with bruises and fear. Learning that sometimes the most dangerous man in the room could also be the safest place to stand. The dinner rush wound down. Staff cleaned and counted tips and shared stories about difficult customers. I did the final walkthrough, checked that everything was locked and secure, grabbed my coat. Dante waited by the door, hand extended. I took it. We walked out into the Chicago night together, and for the first time in years, I wasn't afraid of what came next. Thank you so much for watching until the end. If you love this story, Check out the other videos on your screen now. I think you'll really enjoy them. And don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. See you in the next story.